a finally warm day here at the end of March in central Maryland, and where I live the trees are just budding, and we'll take a look around at some of those as we talk, but they're just now starting to come into bud. And if you go maybe a half hour south of here, there are trees that are already in full flower, but we are just one little step behind, and that's perfect timing to put some bees in tomorrow. And I'll be shooting that one tomorrow and sharing that as a separate video. But I thought I'd go ahead and take a little time right now to talk about my hives. I decided to go with top bar hives rather than Langstroth hives, simply for, a couple of reasons. Number one, it was easier for me to build these out of a combination of scrap and new lumber, and also because the top bar hive honestly mimics more closely the bees' natural home as they would find it in a hollowed out cavity or a log. So let's just take a look at some of the things that I included. Alright, so as you can see, it's a combination of some used lumber. I built the sides out of pallet boards. Not thin pallet boards, but the ones that are used to actually hold heavier weight. Had strapping lines and such in them. And I combined them together to make what amounts to a 2x12. And in hindsight, I made a few mistakes in that you'll see here in a minute, which meant I had to do a little more adaptation. But if I were to do it again, I would try to find some scrap 2x12 or just get myself some fresh 2x12. I can't speak for everybody, but I have no desire whatsoever to try and pick up and put back on a lid every single time. So I put hinged lids on, and funny enough, the day I finished putting the lids on, I had not yet put on the hadn't put on the latch yet, and I told myself, I'll do it tomorrow. And not the best idea, because we got winds of we had gusts up to 100 miles an hour the next day. In fact, the wind started about a half an hour after I had finished just putting the lids on, and the lid on the other hive actually ended up halfway across the yard. The wind picked it right up and just ripped it right off the hive. So now I have stronger hinges and latches. I have a little bit of extra insulation on top, which I plan to leave there for the most part, especially if it gets super, super hot out during the summertime, as it can around here from time to time. That'll keep a little bit cooler. And in the wintertime, I will keep these on here to keep some heat in. But I also plan to get some, or make some, basically insulating quilting. Probably make that out of sawdust. Inside of muslin that can just go right on top of it like a quilt. But as you can see, I have most of the bars that I need. I have a couple bars that I need to fit back in here. But so far, I am pretty well set on what they're going to need when I first install them. Let's take a closer look. Alright, so the basic top bar hive is very simply a trough. And in this case, like I said, I used the thick pallet boards to make basically a 2x12. And honestly, I like having the thicker boards here, because let's face it, if the bees were in a hollowed out log, it would be a lot thicker, most likely on the outside, than your average 1x2 or 1x. The bees need more than 3/4 inch worth of insulation to try and stay warm in the winter and cool in the summer. So if I were to continue making these or make them for others, I would probably work straight up with 2x12s all around, just to add extra insulation. Yes, it is going to be twice as heavy, but my concern is more with the health of the bees, not whether or not it weighs an extra 10 pounds. So that's why I went with the thicker boards. Now, here's the mistake I had to correct. Inside, if you can see, there are these, I had to put in some some screen board here, because I wasn't thinking when I built it. I was just working. I was having fun, and I should have put all this on the outside because it left these gaps in here where the metal strapping would normally go to hold down whatever was being transported. And that was not the best idea to put them on the inside, because it's a big enough gap for the bees to be able to get around them, which under some circumstances is not an issue, but in this case, I don't want them getting around the follower boards. And so, yeah, I wasn't thinking too swiftly on that. Learn that one for next time. If I ever use this kind of scrap lumber again, these will definitely go on the outside. But I will also say that trying to get these boards all straight and even, not easy. So, yeah, pallet wood for this, probably not next time. By the way, the basic design for this I got from Phil Chandler, who runs BioBees in England. And I'll put a link down below or up top, if I can figure out how to do that, to go to his site. But he is an excellent resource for anything you want to know about natural keeping of bees. And so the basic trough design, and this design is his, as well as the bottom. Now, in most hives, there's just a screened bottom, and this actually has, oh, I'm going to put this underneath. This actually has a screened bottom as well, but this is what he calls the eco floor, which is trying to mimic more of what bees might have, again, in their natural environment. The screen bottom is supposed to help let the varroa mites drop out and not get back up into the hive again. But his concept is that if there were, say, mulch and other natural decomposing wood and soil in the bottom, that other animals might live in it, like earwigs and other critters that would probably eat the varroa mites, as well as some of the other pests that would typically invade and harass the bees. So that is built as a separate piece, which can be detached and taken off, because let's face it, the bottom part is going to rot faster with leaves and mulch and soil, and there's sticks underneath of the pine needles in here. I have some actual damp mulch that I'm going to put in just a little while, but it's soaking right now, just to try and keep things a little more damp in here, and encourage that natural breakdown, and encourage those other beneficial cohabiting insects and critters to move in. The bees will generally usher out anything and anybody they don't want in there. So we will see how that goes. These are follower boards. The whole idea being that I, as the keeper, can help to manage and control the size and space in which they are working. So when I first put the bees in tomorrow, it'll be about 12 boards wide that they'll start building in and working in, and starting to build up brood. And then as they get closer to the follower boards, I can then move the follower boards down and put more top bars in and allow them to continue to grow in each direction. This one has a hole in it for a very good reason. Underneath of this one, the F stands for feeder, is space to put two 32-ounce jars of feed for them, sugar syrup in this case. And I know there's a lot of talk and debate on whether or not you should feed your bees sugar syrup, but let's face it, right now, if you look around this area, it's still pretty brown. Things are just starting to sprout. There's not any flowers for them to get any nectar from right now, and the pollen is just coming in. So if I don't want them to starve to death from the very beginning, I'm going to have to help them out for a little while. But once they start foraging continually on their own, I won't have to do it anymore. And I can take those out and then just return them in fall time when things start to dry up a bit. But it fits in there, and then the bees should just be able to come right to the jars, and I'll show you the jars another time. And feed down in the bottom space and not get into this space. And there's the other follower board to keep it enclosed. So the whole idea is that I can manage it by moving things back and forth as necessary. If you look closely in here, I don't know how well it's going to show up, but I had to stuff some pine needles in the gaps and cracks here just to try and keep those bees from crawling around the outside. And I know I got some gaps down here I need to work with. So once I put that other mulch in here, I think I should be in good shape. All right, so here is one of the top bars. Yes, the top on mine is a little bit, or the base on it is a little bit wider. I've seen them come to a round, I've seen them come to points. But the whole purpose is, as long as it's more narrow than the board and straight, it will help to encourage the bees to make straight comb. And in this case, having it a little bit wider doesn't bother me, because to me it just feels like they're going to have a little bit more space to attach it, and that will help make it stronger, be less likely to break or fall off. And you can see I have brushed beeswax on it all the way down the length. I don't know how well that's going to show up on the camera, but the beeswax is on there to encourage them to just dive right in. Okay, well, this smells like beeswax, looks like beeswax, and tastes like beeswax, so I guess this is a good place to put some more wax. And that's the idea. And I have this hive is about 42 inches on the inside, so I can actually fit 28 bars across, which is a pretty hefty amount. I don't even know that they're going to use all of it this year. It may take till next year. I don't know, but we'll find out. Now, as to the entrance, there's been a lot of discussion on where the entrance to such a hive should go. I've seen them down on the ends. I've seen them on one end or another end, and I've popped them into the middle this time, mostly because I want to see that chances are they're going to work themselves out to the sides from the center. So your brood is going to be in the middle mostly, and then it'll work its way out to honey on the ends. And knowing that, putting the holes on one end seems like it's working kind of against them rather than with the bees. So I decided to go ahead and put them in the middle. I'm sure there's plenty of debate, and people are welcome to give me their opinions on that. Like I said, I'm no bee expert. I'm just kind of rolling with it and see how it works. I'm going to plug 2 of these holes when I put the bees in tomorrow. And then once they really get to foraging and I see that traffic is increased, then I'll open up the other 2. But just having that single hole will give them an opportunity to fend off their hive more easily from wasps, yellow jackets, robber bees, and any other kind of insect that might want to get in there. They're going to be able to fight them off more easily with just one little tiny space to defend, until their numbers are big enough that they can defend all 3. I chose to put green around the outside of this one, and the other one behind me has purple around it, because bees can see color and they have extremely good memories. And since they're so visually oriented, I wanted to go ahead and give it just 1 ounce of extra help to them, and to do a little scientific experiment and find out whether or not having a different color around their entrance could more easily remind them which is their hive. So we'll see. This is kind of a little bit of a fun side thing. The hive has been covered with linseed oil. Rather than paint on most of it, I decided to paint the roof. And I have lovely logos and names for each of my hives on here. I've gone ahead and chosen some interesting names for my hives, which I'll explain another time. But my sister was kind enough to use her graphic arts skills to create for me some vinyl signs and names to go on top, and when I do that, I'll share them as well. And one last thing, I guess, for now, is the only part of my hives that are treated lumber are the legs, because they're going to be in contact with the ground and other critters. So that was the only part that I wanted to be treated lumber. Other than that, there's nothing else treated in there, because let's face it, the last thing the bees need is just one more nasty chemical up against them. So I guess that's it for now. And tomorrow, when I pick up my bees and I install them, I'll record all that, and I'll let you take a look at that too. So thanks for stopping in. Until next time, have a great day and take care of the bees.